Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this round one coverage of my round one game from the Pacific Coast Open. Let's see. To start with, I wanted to show a picture here. This is the tournament hall that we played in. It was unlike some tournaments; they didn't have different sections and separate rooms, but it was a large enough room to hold all the sections together. This was taken the morning of the third day, so this was after all the different schedules had been combined. So this is everybody playing in the tournament, about 200 players. Each of these tables back here has 5 boards on them, so I don't know if you can count it all up, see how many boards there are, and multiply by 2. The very top boards, there was one table in front with only 3 boards on it, and those were for the top 3 players in the open division. Usually a grandmaster or 2 was up on those boards. Let's see, I took a picture of the left side here, and then another picture of the right side. And then this is one of the tournament directors coming over to tell me to turn my cell phone off. I was taking pictures with the cell phone, and you weren't allowed to have a cell phone that was turned on in the playing area. So he let me off with a warning, but he made me turn it off. And I realized later this is one of their anti-cheating measures. Basically, there are in my local tournaments, they just want your cell phone to be quiet, not disturb the other players. But here they wanted it actually turned off, and that prevents cheating based on, vibrations from your cell phone or whatever, some other mysterious means of communication. Anyway, not an issue for me or my class. Okay, so in my first round game, my first opponent was a young lady. And when I say young, I don't mean high school or middle school. She was actually in elementary school still, with a rating of 1706. My rating for the tournament was 1844. And I started off with e4. She went c5. Go knight f3. She went e6. So at this point, I was starting to think, we could get into a con Sicilian or a Taimanov Sicilian. That's the con Sicilian is a line I've been playing where you continue with a6 and queen c7. There's also the Taimanov with the early knight to c6. So anyway, I go for the open Sicilian, d4. That's the main way to play here. And then she went knight f6, attacking my e-pawn, forcing me to bring a knight out to defend it. And then d6. So this is not the con or the Taimanov. This is the Scheveningen. And the Scheveningen is something I don't see that often because it's sort of been abandoned at the top level because of the Keres attack. You can play in this position the move g4 and just go directly for the king side. Let's see, the most common way of playing it is like this, h6 and then h4 to reinforce that threat of pushing on the g5, knight to c6, and now rook to g1. And white is giving up all hopes of castling on the king side at least, maybe castling queen side later is a possibility, and just going directly for a king side attack. And it's a very dangerous attack, so and an interesting way to play. I didn't play that way for 2 reasons. One was that I was still thinking about the other Sicilians. I was thinking about the Khan and the Taimanov. I hadn't quite registered that we'd gone into a Scheveningen here, and and so I didn't really think too much about the move g4. But secondly, I don't know if I would have played that way anyway. Against a young player that's fairly high rated like this, usually they're pretty sharp tactically, and so getting into a big tactical skirmish right off the bat is maybe not the best way to play. Usually it's a better strategy to kind of take your time, build up slowly, and try and exercise their patience a little bit. So I went bishop e2, which is the second choice in the opening book. g4 is the top choice. Bishop e2 is the second choice, and a good solid way to play. It keeps the knight out of this square and allows me to play bishop e3 without it being harassed. So she went bishop e7, I went bishop e3, she went a6. All these are very normal moves. This stops me from bringing a knight over here and maybe piling up on the d-pawn, or perhaps bringing a bishop over there. Let's see, I castled, she castled, and then I went queen d2, which is not a bad move, but it's actually not in the opening book. I was just lifting my queen up off the back rank to connect my rooks. There's no particular significance to this battery here. There's no fianchettoed bishop here, although I might at some point want to put my bishop on the g5 square. But if we back up, the top 2 choices in the opening book. The first one is f4, just going directly for this kingside attack you see in so many Sicilians. And the second choice, which I think is pretty interesting, is a4. And what a4 does is it stops black, or at least slows down the move b5, which black wants to play. I didn't really think of that, but that would have been a good move here. I prefer that. Having looked at it, I prefer that to queen d2, because after a few moves, let's see, she went queen c7. All this is still okay for white. I don't want to give the impression that anything has gone wrong, but I like a4 a little better. Let's see, I went f3 here, and she went b5. And when I played f3, I was starting to think, I wonder if I could get a Maroczy bind set up. I mean, I know she attacked the e-pawn and forced my knight out early, so it would be a little slower than a typical Maroczy bind, but I could maybe get the knight out of the way and push this c-pawn forward. And when she played b5, it really kind of puts a stop to that plan. But I played rook to c1 anyway. I'm still thinking about maybe getting in that c5 move, and I'm also thinking that having the rook opposite the queen is not a bad idea in any case. She went bishop b7, and I went a4. So a4, I was wondering a little bit if she might try b4 here, just passing by and harassing my knight, but I decided that was okay for me, and I think it is okay. After, for example, if she goes b4, I could drop my knight back here to attack the pawn, and if she defends it, then I can play c3 and try and undermine it, and always c3 comes with the threat of taking the pawn with a tempo on the queen. So this should be good for me. So she chose to take, probably the right decision. I took back, and then she played d5, so very interesting play. And it brings the game to kind of a minor turning point. It's a little ambitious for black to push this d5 pawn before finishing development, but it seems like black can get away with this. But there are some lines here which are kind of interesting, and I thought for a long time at this position, thinking about the move e5, and that is one of the top choices of the chess engine actually. But it's a pawn sack, and I wasn't sure that I was getting enough for it. First I looked at this line, queen takes e5 and bishop to f4, and now the queen has only one square, and so you always want to calculate these lines when you notice something like that. The queen can't go anywhere except here, and any other move just loses the queen for a piece. So I can get my pieces activated, and I can force the queen to the side of the board, but it doesn't seem like I can actually trap the queen there. So there's no material advantage for white at this point. Although the chess engine thinks white is fine. It rates white as doing a little better in this position. So I guess I have enough compensation for the pawn. I have an edge in development. This knight is not yet developed. And maybe black's pieces are a little awkwardly placed. But I didn't see... I really did not see the immediate follow-through here that would justify the loss of the pawn. So the other line I looked at here after e5 is to play knight b6. Let's see. Oh, after queen takes e5. b5, queen takes e5, and then knight b6 instead of bishop f4. Just bring the knight forward, and it hits the rook. The rook only has one square to go to. And once again, I looked ahead about this far, and I didn't see any great follow-through here. The chess engine wants to continue with c4, just kind of opening things up a little bit, and once again thinks that the sacrifice is good for white. So this was a valid pawn sack that I considered for a while. But anyway, in the end, I decided not to play it. I just couldn't see enough compensation there. So I exchanged. But after this, black has some activity here, a very well-posted knight, and I have to lose a tempo. I don't want to give up my bishop here. I drop my bishop back. And so this actually has turned the tables, and black is a little bit better in this position. Or, well, let's say black is equalized, because it kind of goes back and forth, slight edge to white, slight edge to black, in the chess engine's estimation. So she continued with knight d7. I went with c4. I didn't like that knight on that square, so I kicked it. And the knight hopped into f4, supported by the queen. And right here is another place where I have to be a little bit careful. The chess engine is recommending this move, bishop to e3. Put the bishop there and just chase that knight away, or maybe force an exchange of some kind. But I was looking at other ideas. I noticed that well, this knight is looking a little bit loose here. It's only protected by the queen. There's always this idea of sacrificing a piece on e6 in the Sicilian. And so I was thinking, how about if I put a rook here? Rook on the d file. I'd really be threatening knight takes e6, because no matter how black takes back, then I'll be able to grab the knight and I'll be up a pawn at least. So this rook to d1 move was very attractive to me. And but it turns out that it's a bit of a mistake. So if you were in this position, yeah, that's why bishop e3 is the best move here. So if you're in this position and you're calculating, when you look at a move like rook f to d1, you have to look at what your opponent's best reply is. So can you imagine what the best move for black is after rook f to d1? And maybe I'll go ahead and put it on the board. I'm playing this. So what is black's reply here? Okay, pause the video if you want time to think about it. I'm going to give the answer away. My opponent found the move. She played this move, bishop to g5. Really an excellent move. And now, you know, there's some problems here. This knight is threatening to take this bishop with check, and then that exposes this attack on my queen. Now, my first thought was to continue with the plan. Just play knight takes e6, because after all, when I take on e6, I'm hitting the queen. So, you know, there'll be like a mutual attack on the queen. He grabs the pawn, the bishop with check, however, so I don't have time to take the queen. I have to take back. And now black can take my knight. And now I have this check. I saw this far. But there's a defense here. Rook up. And that, so this knight is adequately defended. So I don't get my piece back. I'm just down a piece for a pawn or two. 2 pawns, I guess. I have 2 pawns for a piece. And it's just not enough. This is no good for white. So this knight takes e6 threat is just not a big enough threat. And secondly, you know, I could try just getting my queen away from this discovered attack. For example, queen c2 is probably the second best move here. But he can still go ahead. She rather can still go ahead with their threat. Take my bishop on e2. I take back, and then bishop takes c1. She's won the exchange, and maybe I get a pawn for it. But it's just not good. This is all good for black. So the move I played was bishop to e3, and that's actually the best move here, the top choice of the chess engine. But, well, black is just a little better here. And once again, there's one move that really brings home the advantage to black. So can you find the best move for black here? Okay, actually I think there were 2 of them. Either rook. Putting a rook on the d file is the best way to continue to add pressure to my position. She chose to move the f rook there, but I think rook a to d8 would also work. And now there's this annoying threat of this pawn coming forward to e5, chasing my knight away, and then she has a discovered attack on my queen, so she gets to move that knight with tempo. The best move here, according to the chess engine, is actually to allow that, just to drop this bishop back to f1. The idea is to get away from knight takes e2 with check. So the knight can still come there with check, but it doesn't win a piece, at least, or doesn't take a piece. Then black can continue with e5. Let's see, the knight goes to f5, and then this knight has a free discovery on my queen, but it appears there's nothing too great here. Knight to c5 was the top choice, and now I need to move my queen away from the rook. And well, it's important that this knight f4 is defending the bishop, so this check here doesn't pick up the bishop. It might have been a useful exchange for black. So things are a bit tricky, but it seems like Let's see, after the exchange, black would continue with e4. It seems like things are okay for white. Black is better. Black has more active pieces and is starting to tear apart my center, but it looks like there's still a game here. I mean, the chess engine gives a, well, not quite a +1 advantage to black, so black's advantage is somewhat less than a pawn. So there's still chances for white to hold this. But I did not play that move, bishop to f1. I was, looking at various threats and trying to find ways to deal with them. And, in particular, I saw this bishop takes, or knight takes e2 check as one of the more annoying threats here. Plus, I also wanted to get the queen off of the d file to get it away from the rook. So I came up with the move queen to e1. And the idea is if knight takes e2, my queen will take back on e2 and protect the bishop. So the discovered attack on the bishop doesn't amount to anything. So I played queen e2, but it turns out to be a blunder. So let's see. If you put your blunder check mode on, turn on your blunder check mode, see if you can find why queen e1 is a blunder. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. I played the move queen e1, and the reason I know it's a blunder is because immediately after I played that move, I was looking at the position and I said, oh no, she's going to play knight h3 check, isn't she? And well, she'd looked at the position for a long time. I think I should give my opponent credit here. She took the game seriously and was always looking for the best move and was taking her time. So she wasn't just slamming out these moves like some kids do. So anyway, I'm in check and my undefended bishop is hanging, and I really have nothing better to do than to take the knight. I'm going to lose that bishop anyway if I don't take the knight, so I might as well take it. And when she takes the bishop, though, it's a check, and she also wins the exchange over here. So I'm down the exchange, and my kingside position is messed up. I kept on playing. I mean, it's not immediately clear that this position is lost, or at least it wasn't to me at the time. But actually, this is lost already. It's much worse. The combination of being down the exchange, black's active pieces, and my messed up kingside means that this is completely indefensible. And she played this part very well. She brought the queen in, queen to f4, hitting my loose knight, and starting to put pressure on the f3 pawn. I brought my rook over to d1 to defend the knight. She plays e5, bringing this pawn forward to help with the attack. I drop my knight back to b3, and she just pushes on with e4 immediately. So now she's chased the knight away from defense of the f3 point, and she's threatening to break through here. She's got the bishop, the queen, and the pawn all attacking that. So I defended with queen to f2, and now she came in with knight e5, so a third piece plus the pawn all attacking that square, and it's just falling apart here. Let's see, I threw in this exchange. This doesn't help. It doesn't hurt either. And then I took this pawn. I was thinking, well, maybe we can go into some kind of endgame, and I would try and play on in the endgame and exchange down. But black doesn't have to go for the endgame. In fact, she has better moves here. She starts with taking this pawn with check. And let's see, I moved my king forward to g3. I didn't like the idea of getting mated on the back rank there. So I don't know if it was a mate. I mean, maybe I could have gotten away by running to f1, but the queen is coming into h1. It's a very dangerous threat. So I tried queen knight here. I was also thinking, oh, maybe I can get in this move and get something going. You always look for active possibilities here. But as I said, she was taking her time and looking for good moves and finding them. And she found a very nice move here, knight g6. And not a move that I had anticipated. It threatens mate here. Queen coming over here is checkmate because the bishop is cutting off the escape of the king, and the queen sitting here delivers the mate. So pretty dangerous threat. There's only a couple of moves here that can be tried. Let's see. One move I thought about for a while. I didn't play this in the end. Thought bishop to f3 was interesting. Let's see. But there's actually a forced mate here. The chess engine likes this line, queen h4 check, and if the king goes to g2, and how's this go? Oh, well, one thing she can do, this is one thing I saw, is that she can just take things off and come in here with the check and pick up another piece. So it'd be a rook and knight against against a knight. So that would definitely be losing. So at the very least, she could do that. There's also some mating lines in there as well that the chess engine finds. Let's see. So I didn't go with bishop f3. I went with bishop to g4. The idea was to shield the queen, so shield that square from the queen, so the queen can't come over there and mate me. But well, there's another very good move coming up here if you want to find the best move for black in this position. It's the move queen to e5 check, and this is just a forced mate. The bishop once again is guarding all those escape squares. The knight's guarding these squares, and so I resigned. So a good game, and nice play by my opponent, so I predict she will do well in the future. Anyway, but this was just the first round. I will be back with second round coverage soon. I'll see you then. Bye.